Welcome to another edition of New World Sounds. I'm your host, Mega Million, aka Mike the Millionaire. Don't go anywhere because we have a special guest in the entertainment world joining us right after the break. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back, and today we have a very, very special guest, someone who is a legend and staple in the entertainment world. Please welcome our guest, Mr. Apollo Billy Mitchell.
How you doing, brother? I'm so glad to be here. So glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you.
Yes,
I'm glad
sir.
to have you.
Yes, sir.
Man, wow, I don't even know where to start.
Well,
I mean, wow, so you've been at the Apollo probably like almost since it opened, right?
well, actually, I've been there off and on for 49 years.
Wow.
I first came to the Apollo Theater in 1965 to run errands. The first time I came, it wasn't to see a show. It was to run errands. I was born and raised in Mount Vernon, right? One of 14 children. And we had rough times. We were in foster care and things like that. And we finally moved from Mount Vernon to the South Bronx. And one day while living in the South Bronx, we didn't have any food in the house. I was living up on Boston Road. We didn't have any food, so my mom asked me to come down to Harlem to borrow some money from a relative, my aunt, who happened to live right across the street from the Apollo. But when I went to get the money from her to buy the food, she wasn't home. So to waste time until she got there, I walked up and down the street and back of the Apollo Theater waiting for her, and I got tired. So I walked across the street and stood in the backstage door area of the Apollo to get some rest. And that's when the owner of the Apollo at that time, Mr. Frank Schiffman, he comes out and sees me stand there and he says, "Hey, kid, what are you doing back here?" I said, "I'm not doing nothing, mister. I'm waiting for my aunt to come home." He says, "While you're waiting, you want to make some money?" And I was getting ready to bounce because I didn't know what he was talking about, right? But he eased my mind. He says, "I'm not talking about messing with you. I'm asking, do you want to make some money by running to the store for people? There are people inside rehearsing for a show, and they need somebody to get their coffee, their newspapers and things. And if you run these errands, they'll give you a little tip." And that's what I did. The first day, I could not believe the amount of money I made that night from these entertainers.
Wow.
And they let me come back the next day after school, and that turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months. Months turned into years.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
it's a blessing. Yeah.
Wow, since 1965.
1965.
What year was it that the Apollo opened?
The building actually was built in 1914.
Oh,
but
wow.
yeah, but when it was first built, it wasn't called the Apollo Theater.
Okay.
The actual building was originally called Hurtig and Seaman's New Burlesque Theater. It was in 1914 an all-white burlesque house. When burlesque was banned in the early 1930s by the then mayor, Oriolla LaGuardia, new owners bought the building in 1934 and renamed the building the Apollo Theater. That's how it became known as the Apollo, based on the name of the Greek god Apollo.
Apollo, right. Wow, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that was open that long.
Yeah, it was open in 1914, but as I said, it was an all-white theater. And the reason they bought the building in 1934, because 1934 was at the tail end of a wonderful era. That era was called the Harlem Renaissance. And the owners wanted to get out of burlesque and now do shows featuring what they call colored people, colored reviews.
Okay.
And they wanted to see acts like Cap Calloway, U.B. Blake, all the great acts that performed it. They wanted their white audience to see these blacks. But again, brother, blacks were not allowed in theaters in Harlem back then. So the Apollo Theater was actually the first theater in Harlem to have blacks perform in this theater. The very first.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And what happened was the audience, when they first put the first all-colored review, the first all-colored show done there, as they call us, it was put together by an African-American actor from Harlem, a guy named Ralph Cooper, right? Okay. And Ralph went out and got an all-black orchestra, the Benny Carter Orchestra. Okay. Went out and got 16 African-American female dancers doing ballet, right? Ralph also included on that show 2 of the top African-American female opera singers, Arabella Scott, and Aida Ward. Now, the audience of our white brothers and sisters, they didn't think they were going to see a show of that caliber. They thought they were going to see what I call one of those coon shows. You know, how y'all doing out there? Y'all? They saw this refined show and they were absolutely shocked. The show was done there on January 26, 1934. It was called Jazz a la carte, right? And the show made such a huge impression on the white audiences that they wanted to see more. So in October of that same year, 1934, Ralph Cooper contacts the owners of the Apollo and said, gentlemen, this time I want to bring to your audience the very first ever organized talent show done anywhere, but I normally do it on my radio show. You see, Ralph Cooper had a very popular radio show back then called the Harlem Amateur Hour Radio Show. And when they worked out a deal to bring it to the Apollo, they renamed it Amateur Night at the Apollo, which has now been going on every Wednesday night at 7:30 for 80 years. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And the very first female to win the Amateur Night competition was a 16, maybe 17-year-old girl. Her name was Ella Fitzgerald. She was the very first to win amateur, first female.
Really?
And then others came behind her that became legends by doing Amateur Night. Sarah Vaughan, you know, Billie Holiday, Gladys Knight, the Pips, the Isley Brothers, Dionne Warwick, you know, Luther Vandross, you know, Lauryn Hill. You know, you name them, they all started, and even your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad did Amateur Night and won several times.
Yeah, yeah.
So
he still got the little tickets that.
Your dad went to work. Believe me, brother. And
I know Luther Vandross was on that night when he won too.
Yes, Luther, and Luther, you know, Luther was part of a group as well that did the Amateur Night show. Our newest discovery on Amateur Night is a young white brother, a rapper from Cleveland, Ohio. His name is Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, he did Amateur Night about maybe 2.5 years ago. The kid had skills. And I recall the day we were downstairs in the green room, and I always go down, give the amateurs a little, you know, pep talk, you know, just take it easy, you know. This isn't the end of the world if you get booed. This is just the part of the journey, because you're not going to be looked at as the best through this journey. And there will be people that may boo you tonight. Don't let it fret you at all. I remember he asked me to listen to these tracks of music he was going to rap to. And I said, bro, you a rapper? I said, my man, you a tall, blonde, white in Harlem, and you gonna rap? I said that now, I don't want to fall in that stereotype of things, you know, like only blacks rap, because I've seen people get really, really, the audience in a wonderful show of love for them because they expected something else, and they just happened to be white. But Machine Gun Kelly had me listen to a few of the tracks he was going to rap to. The first two, I kind of, be honest, they were kind of whack. I said, bruh, when you rap on Amateur Night, I don't care how good your skills or your lyrics, first you got to get the audience, you get them doing like this, right? Then you start rapping, right? And then you get them. And he took my advice, and then I remember one day he comes to the Apollo with the crew from MTV, and he's telling the crew that, you know, that's the guy that you know. I said, bro, don't give me that much credit, you know. I happened to be there. We were just listening to the music we're going to rap to. I suggested what I thought would be good for you, and it worked. And you know, shortly thereafter, I understand he submits a video on YouTube, and Puffy sees it. And the rest is history.
The rest is history, yeah.
Put him in the studio with Waka Flocka. They came out with this banger called Bad Boys or Wild Boys or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's doing very well. I'm very proud of him.
Yeah, he's a skilled rapper.
Yeah, he's, man, and I was impressed because the reason they call him Machine Gun Kelly, he does it fast.
The fast, exactly.
And I remember the night he did the Apollo, it was one of those special nights when you have the entire, you know, theater jump up and stand and give him applause, man.
I'm sorry to end this so briefly, but we're going to have to take a break.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to have to wrap it up after that. But I want you to, when we come back and during the wrap-up, I want you to talk a little bit about your book.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll be back after a moment, and we will come back with Mr. Apollo, Billy Mitchell.
Yes.
The name of the book is called They Call Me Mr. Apollo. And if you want, you can get a little zoom in on that.
And my reason for writing the book, because I do tours at the Apollo every day. I'm the tour director, in-house historian, and Apollo ambassador. Those are 3 positions that I officially hold. But the people that I give tours to, they always say, man, you should write your autobiography, you know? You started here running errands, now you part of a group that runs the theater, and I've held every position in between. There's not one job I haven't done at the Apollo, not one. I mean, maintenance, security, stagehand, marketing, public relations, you name it, I've done it. And I created the Apollo Theater Tours in 1992. They weren't even doing them. So people kept saying, you should write your book. And I said, yeah, maybe, you know. And, I didn't think anybody cared about that or me or my autobiography. And I sat down a few years, and the thing that finally convinced me when I received a call from the White House, that Mrs. Obama had heard about the tours and wanted to come and get a personal tour with her mother, daughters, and some friends. Oh, wow. And while taking her around, she suggested, you should write a book. I said, well, people have been telling me that, and I started writing it. She said, you got to finish it. And I did. It tells my story. There are several ways that people can get a copy. Okay. You can go to my website, which is www.mrapollo.webs.com. That's mrapollo.webs.com. Okay. Or you can contact me at area code 347-653-3639.
Say that again?
347-653-3639. And if you call me to get the book, I will make sure that I autograph it to whoever requests a copy of it. You are an incredible host, my brother, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure,
and hopefully we can get you back on.
I would love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you, too.
All right.
I'm Mega Million of New World Sounds, and this is the segment of the show where we spotlight people who are doing positive things in the community. We are here joined with Sister Oriolla. Sister Oriolla is a Reiki Master. She's also a medium and also a storyteller. Sister Oriolla, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good, good.
Glad to be here.
Great, glad to have you. Tell me a little bit about how you got started in Reiki.
In Reiki? Well, I used to live in the Virgin Islands on St. Croix, and I began with color healing. I would do tie-dye. I would do pieces for people, either clothing for them to wear or pieces to hang up, as wall hangings for them to absorb the color visually. And I realized that people were getting healings from these pieces, from the energy of the colors and so forth. And when they would come to me and we would have conversations, and I would say things like, wait a minute, I just feel this impulse just to put my hands out and just move them around. And I said, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but tell me if this feels good. And it was kind of weird, so I would do it, and they would say that they felt an energy being transmitted through me. Wow. And I just continued to do it, just by natural guidance. And when I came back to the U.S., I actually met some people, some Reiki masters, and they explained to me it's called laying on of hands, and you're actually channeling what they call pranic energy, which is the energy that's all around us, the energy that's life itself. And I said, this is interesting. How does this work? So I got my first attunement, which is, it's kind of like an initiation where they actually transmit energy and symbols to you, and they actually teach you the hand configurations. And I realized, wow, this is what I've been doing all the time, just with natural guidance. So I would say that's really how I got started with that.
Wow, so when you started doing what you were doing with the colors, you didn't have any type of formal training.
No.
Wow.
No, not at all. To me, it was doing art.
Okay.
At first, it was just pure art. I actually studied some tie-dye, you know, the traditional ways, you know, people in the quote-unquote village, and they pass on their knowledge to you, and it's like, this is how you use the dyes, and these are these kind of folds, and I would just, you know, go into meditation and come up with my own folds, and it was always a surprise once I opened up the cloth to see what was what. And I had a really interesting experience when I first got started. A woman brought a bunch of T-shirts to me for her son, and she says, you know, could you just tie-dye these? So I said, yeah, sure. So I took them and I did my thing. I meditated and folded them. And I noticed one in particular had this strange configuration. It looked like two orange lungs right in the front of the shirt. I said, this is really interesting. And intuitively, I said, something's going on with his lungs. I get this sense that he has asthma, some type of respiratory illness. And you know, I just prayed over it. And then I gave her the T-shirts, and I saved that one for last. And when I gave it to her, I said, you know, before I show you this shirt, I want to ask you a question. Does your son have any kind of respiratory problems? Because I just get this sense. And she says, yes. How did you know? He has asthma. He has, you know, severe asthma. And I opened up the shirt and I showed her, and she was amazed. And I began to see the connection between the colors and the healing and the energy. And so I just started to continue doing it that way. And I started putting crystals in the water and putting the water that the tie-dye bath would be in, putting in the sunlight, doing it at the beach, you know, for more energy, you know, from nature and so forth, even putting herbs in the water. So it became a little more, you know, sophisticated, a little more energetic.
Wow. Now, for people who don't know what Reiki is, can you give them a little explanation of what exactly Reiki is?
Reiki is what they call the ancient art of laying on of hands. And what you do is you just, everyone has the connection to the universe. As I said before, there's energy all around us. Some people call it pranic energy, which is just the energy of life. So, you know, we're always plugged into the universe all the time. So it's actually consciously just channeling that energy through your body and through your hands. And as I said, there's certain hand configurations that you can do, which I personally don't always practice. I go with my intuition. Okay. And and sometimes I don't even put my hands actually on the person. Sometimes I just deal in the energy field. But traditionally, Reiki is actually putting on of hands and transmitting the hands, the energy through the hands. You can actually feel the vibration, you know, when you're working with people and you're channeling that energy, your hands start to vibrate. Excuse me. Sometimes they become warm, sometimes they become flushed, and you can actually feel it, and the person actually feels it even before you touch them. They can feel that energy coming toward them. So it's very simple, very basic, and as I said, when you actually go through formal attunements, you're actually given certain symbols and certain words that you meditate on. You're transmitting through that person. You could do it up close as you're here. You could do it long distance. You could even do it for people who've even passed on, for them to, you know, help on their journey after this life.
You have people who may come from a certain religious persuasion that may say that that's, you know, it's not biblical, or, you know, whatever their particular religion is. Can you give us some connection between what's in the scriptures?
Oh, okay. From what I understand of Jesus did healing, and he did laying on of hands. He did many things, and so this is something how he said, marvel not at what I will do, you will do far greater things. So this is also our birthright. You know, that's the best word I could say. You know, it's an ancient art. Reiki is actually two words. Let me see if I really remember this, because once you start doing stuff, at least for me, I forget all the history of it, but I believe it's a Japanese word, rei, which is light, and ki, which is life force, like chi. You know.
Right.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I'm familiar with it, but for the audience, you know.
But again, it's not really religious per se. Like anyone could do Reiki.
Exactly.
It's not designated to one religious, orientation. Because as I said, we all have energy flowing through us. Life is energy.
Right, and even I know that Reiki is starting to become kind of mainstream.
And actually they do it, people come in hospice, in the hospitals, and actually do it for people who are severely ill and dying.
Exactly.
So it's just, gives them some peace and comfort. It's part of, in some hospitals, part of the palliative care program.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it is mainstream, and it's not. Some people may say, "Oh, it sounds like witchcraft or voodoo or something." It's really not.
Right. Right.
It's not.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you can believe that, just like there's electricity all around us, and someone discovered that if you braid together some wires and you insulate it with this, plastic or whatever, and you plug it in the wall, that we can channel that and light bulbs and operate a refrigerator, we can actually do that too. We don't need any wires or anything. All we have to do is just open up and just let it flow through us. That's really all that it is. And as I said, everyone can do it. Not everyone has to be formally trained, and some people do in order to open up, because we may have mental blocks or learning blocks because how we've been trained. So some people actually do need to go through the formal training to know how to just relax and open and allow it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And you also are a medium.
Yes.
Can you explain to the audience about mediumship? What exactly is a medium?
Well, a medium is a conduit, and some people may call a channel. And again, just like Reiki, we all have the ability to channel these energies. It's just that, just how some people come here who are more inclined to play instruments, they become musicians, or some people become doctors. We all come here with a certain affinity for certain things. So I just happen to be born with an open channel. And I say open channels, it's just like the radio waves, and I just naturally plug into certain things, and I have had training. But what a medium is, it's just like how we have these two cups. Let me just demonstrate. So a medium would be the person in the middle person. So let's say you're the spirit, and this is the 3D person, the earth person. So the medium would be sort of like the telephone between the two, because a person may not be able to tune into the frequency of that particular spirit or those particular energies, so they need someone to communicate for them.
Yeah, that middleman.
Yeah, middleman.
Yeah, exactly.
Middleman, middlewoman.
Yeah. Oh wow. So you had training for to become a medium, or were you were born automatically getting channels?
Well, I was born from as far back as I can remember. I always saw things like lights and people. Like I was aware from a very young age that there were spiritual people around me, light people. And I remember them sitting down with me and talking to me. I remember I must have been about 3 years old, and they felt very beautiful, just like very angelic and just pure light beings.
Wow.
And they sat me down and they showed me, just like a movie, and they said, this is what you came to do. They showed me the world, and it wasn't until I was much older, and I said, wait a minute, those things didn't happen at that time. They showed me Kennedy being shot. They showed me Dr. King and a bunch of other people. I particularly remember those two.
Wow.
And they said, this is what you've come to do work in this world, out of the body. And they stood around patiently. I remember that very clearly, and they kind of smiled. I could feel their energy. They said, no, but you're here. You chose to come. And they said, don't worry, we will always be with you. And then I took the covers off, and all right. And that's one of my earliest memories, and a very beautiful memory of that. And I would see things that were very pleasant, some things that were kind of scary as a child. Like, when I hear children talking about the monsters in the closet and under the bed, I listen to them. I listen to them because a lot of children in particular are very, very open because they haven't been taught that this is weird or they're not supposed to see this. So we come here just like as young children, we come open, and when we're transitioning on the, to the other end, what we call death, we're open again. And that's why you see a lot of people who are leaving, they start seeing people on the other side. Everyone seems to have this experience. They'll start seeing like their welcoming committee. They say, I see angels, and I see, you know, the departed, you know, and it's consistent. It's consistent, or they'll see that light. And it's because, again, because we're very open at those two. In the coming in and the going out, we're open.
Wow.
Very open. And later on in my life, various teachers showed up at auspicious times in my life to give me guidance, which I'm very thankful for. In fact, I was just telling a friend, I was like, I'm ready for another teacher about now. But I guess, you know, I'm kind of on my own. Well, not really on my own, because like I said, my peeps, I call them my peeps, my light people are with me.
Wow.
And that's one thing that I've had to humbly accept. Each teacher that I have, they bring you so far, and then it's like, okay, you have to step on your own for now until the next one, and it's a rites of passage each time.
And for the listeners, I want y'all to know that this is not one of those charlatans. I know that she is for real, because, I mean, she's didn't know me from a can of paint, you know, and just started telling me things that she had no business knowing. So I know she is the real deal. Yeah.
And again, it's like I feel very humble. I feel it's a gift. I'm always amazed. I say, okay, Most High, you let me use this again today. Okay, I still get to do your work. I'm so thankful. And as I say, I tell people, I'm a channel, I'm a medium. It's not from me. And I always tell people, take notes, because I may not remember all of this, because I'm just, you know, the conduit, you know. And as I said, I'm always amazed. I find it phenomenal.
Wow. Yeah. And you are also a storyteller.
Yes, I'm a storyteller.
And tell us a little bit how you got started in that, briefly.
Okay, well, my mother, who is from the Caribbean, from the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, always told me stories as a child, and especially those down-home stories and the Jumbi stories, which are the ghost stories.
Yeah, I remember those.
All like that. And so I grew up with it, and I guess traditionally it was just something that I was destined to do. And I told my children stories. Well, my oldest daughter, I would tell her stories, and you know, about the big dolphin, friend dolphin, who lived in the sea and would come up to the shore and take her on this journey and all. And I experienced Hurricane Hugo in 1989, which was devastating to St. Croix. Yeah, it was incredible. And but through the Most High guidance, I was absolutely prepared. I had gone to boot camp, living in the bush. I felt like Noah. I was told to be prepared, that one was going to hit, and I went around telling as many people as I could, so I was prepared. So when it did hit, I mean, I went through what people went through too. It was very frightening, but after all was calm, because we were okay, it's like, well, I need to go out and do something to help. And there was a public school down the road from where I lived, and that was being used as a shelter. And so I took a handful of books and I walked over to the school and just, you know, gave the children something to do while they were there all day. They were there, no TV, because there wasn't any electricity, no radios. And so I said, let me help these children, because I was also a teacher. I taught at a Montessori-based school. And so I said, let me go over there and give something. So I found myself not only just reading the books, but also telling stories and listening to their stories of what they experienced during the hurricane, and telling them about my experience. And then it just mushroomed from there. I worked in an organization, Neighborhood Support Network, which was going out and doing field work. And it just became part of it, became like therapeutic. And so that's how I really formally got started, and then people started to hire me, so I became paid and a professional storyteller.
Wow.
And when I came back to New York, you know, they say, if you can make it anywhere, you know, you can make it here. Well, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Queens Public Library, very nervous, you know, because New York and all, and just did my thing, and it just, again, mushroomed
from there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Libraries and all kind of places.
Yeah, so how do How do people get in contact with you? Because you're available, you know, for doing stories and all kind of stuff like that, healing and stuff like that. Do you have a way that people can contact you?
Yes, I have a website. It's Oriarts, ORIARTS.com. Easy to remember, just like my name, Oriarts.com.
Okay.
And my phone number and my email is on there.
Okay, great. Well, Sister Oriolla, it was a pleasure to have you on here. Definitely.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so we are about to wrap it up. I'm Mega Million of New World Sounds. Until next time, we are signing out. Take care.